Have you ever found yourself longing for a deeper connection with God, especially in moments when life feels chaotic and overwhelming? Prayer, when truly understood, is more than just words. It's a lifeline to the peace and hope that only God can provide. In this fireside chat inspired by the wisdom of C.S. Lewis, we'll explore how to make your prayers more meaningful and transformative. Together, we'll uncover insights that can strengthen your faith, reignite your hope, and draw you closer to the loving presence of God. Whether you're searching for answers, seeking solace, or simply yearning for a sense of divine closeness, this video offers gentle guidance to help you navigate your spiritual journey with confidence and grace. Let's rediscover the profound power of prayer. Prayer is often misunderstood in our modern world. It's not a formula to get what we want, nor is it an obligation performed out of routine. As C.S. Lewis reminds us, prayer is an invitation, a chance to step into a deeper relationship with God. It's about aligning our hearts with His will, trusting in His wisdom, and finding strength and clarity in moments of uncertainty. Years ago, I experienced something that deeply shaped my understanding of prayer. I woke up one morning with plans to prepare for a trip, including a haircut. But unexpectedly, my plans changed. The trip was canceled, and I saw no urgency to follow through with the haircut. Yet a persistent thought began to nudge me, a quiet inner whisper that said, "Go anyway." After some hesitation, I followed that feeling. At the barber's shop, I discovered why. My barber, a devout Christian going through personal struggles, greeted me with a look of relief. "I was praying for someone to come today," he said. In that moment, I realized that my simple decision to act on an unexplainable prompting became an answer to someone else's prayer. Was it divine orchestration or a coincidence? Either way, it highlighted the mysterious ways prayer connects lives. If this resonates with you, don't keep it to yourself. Like, share, and subscribe to Daily Soul Blessings for more life-changing insights. Together, let's grow stronger in faith, uncover truth, and walk confidently in the love of Christ. Another story, equally profound, shows how prayer transcends the limits of human understanding. I once witnessed the incredible recovery of a woman diagnosed with terminal cancer. Her condition was dire. Even basic movements required the help of multiple nurses. Yet, after a faithful individual prayed over her, her condition began to improve remarkably. A year later, she was walking confidently, defying all medical predictions. Stories like these may challenge our reasoning. Medicine, as all true physicians humbly acknowledge, is not an exact science. As Lewis wisely noted, miracles and prayer often exist in a space beyond empirical proof. Faith isn't about demanding evidence. It's about trusting that God works through our prayers in ways we might not fully comprehend. What proves the power of prayer? When we speak of prayer, a natural question often arises. How can we truly measure its effectiveness? Imagine this. You pray fervently for something, and it happens, but how can you know it wouldn't have occurred anyway? Even when the outcome appears miraculous, how can you be certain it was your prayers that made it so? The truth is, prayer cannot be subjected to the rigid standards of empirical proof, as we find in science. It exists in a realm beyond experiments and equations, woven into the unseen fabric of faith and divine interaction. Consider the law of gravity. We accept its validity because in every experience, it holds consistently true. But prayer, even if all requests were answered, which they are not, would still not conform to such rigid predictability. Why? Because prayer is not about controlling outcomes, but about offering a request to God, knowing He will sometimes grant and other times withhold, according to his infinite wisdom. It is this uncertainty, this space where trust meets surrender, that gives prayer its profound spiritual depth. The difference between faith and magic. If every prayer were answered, without exception, it would not validate Christian doctrine. Instead, it would suggest something closer to magic, a power that bends nature to human will. But Christianity does not portray prayer in this way. The Bible, while sometimes appearing to promise unequivocal answers to prayer, reveals a deeper truth when examined in context. For example, consider Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane, the holiest of all petitioners. He prayed 3 times, asking for the cup of suffering to be taken from him. Yet, the answer was a resounding no. This moment, central to the Christian story, underscores a vital truth. Prayer is not a guarantee of outcomes, but an alignment of our will with God's greater purpose. Can prayer be tested? Some might propose testing prayer through experiments. For instance, asking a group to pray for patients in one hospital and not for another, then comparing the results. But as Lewis wisely pointed out, such experiments are fundamentally flawed. Prayer is not merely words. It is a heartfelt act of faith and surrender. To pray for the sake of an experiment strips it of its sincerity and meaning, reducing it to mere words devoid of spiritual intent. As Shakespeare's Hamlet so poignantly says, "Words without thoughts never to heaven go." True prayer cannot be manufactured for scientific purposes, nor can it be motivated by anything other than genuine compassion and faith. Otherwise, as Lewis humorously remarked, a group of well-trained parrots could serve as substitutes for people in such an experiment. As you listen, let these words sink into your soul, and may they be a reminder that even when the journey seems dark, God's light is closer than you think. Please like, subscribe, tap the notification bell, and share this meaningful message with those you hold dear. May our beloved Lord guide and protect each of us on this journey. Prayer and practice, a deeper perspective. What, then, is the essence of prayer? It is not a transactional act where we pay with words to receive what we want. Instead, it is an intimate connection, a conversation with the Creator. Imagine asking a friend for a favor or seeking advice from a loved one. Sometimes they help and sometimes they don't, but their response always stems from love and understanding. Similarly, God listens, not as a genie fulfilling wishes, but as a loving Father who sees far beyond what we can comprehend. This understanding frees us from the need for empirical validation. It shifts the focus of prayer from results to relationship, from control to trust. Prayer transforms not only circumstances, but also the one who prays. It teaches humility, patience, and an abiding faith in God's perfect plan, even when it differs from our desires. The true measure of prayer. In the end, the power of prayer is not measured by visible outcomes, but by the invisible grace it imparts. It molds us, shapes our character, and draws us closer to God. Whether our prayers are answered with a yes, no, or wait, they are never wasted. Each prayer we offer is an act of trust, a step into the unknown, guided by faith. So, the next time you kneel to pray, don't focus on whether your request will be granted. Instead, focus on the relationship it nurtures. Remember that in prayer, we are not changing God, but allowing Him to change us. And in this sacred exchange, we find not just answers, but a profound sense of peace, knowing that His will is always good, always perfect, and always rooted in love. The everyday act of asking, In life, we often find ourselves making requests of friends, family, colleagues, and even strangers. We ask for simple things like passing the salt at dinner, or for significant favors like feeding the cat while we're away. We may ask for a raise from our employer, or even something life-changing like a marriage proposal. Sometimes our requests are granted, other times they are not. But what's truly intriguing is this. Even when we get what we ask for, it's not as straightforward as it seems to prove that our request caused the outcome. Take, for example, your kind-hearted neighbor. Even if you forgot to arrange for your cat's care, they might have stepped in out of compassion. Or consider your boss who agrees to a raise. Is it solely because you asked, or were they already planning to secure your loyalty against a rival firm's offer? And what about a proposal of marriage? Could it be that the decision to say yes was made long before the question was even asked? The mystery of connection. These examples highlight a profound truth. The same uncertainties that surround the outcomes of our prayers to God also exist in our interactions with one another. Sometimes what we receive might have been coming our way regardless of our request. Yet, it's not entirely random. Those who know us deeply, our friends, partners, or employers, may act in response to our requests, guided by their understanding of our needs and their love or concern for us. This reveals a fundamental insight. Our assurance in these situations is not rooted in scientific proof, but in relationships. We trust because we know the people we ask, not just as individuals, but through the bonds we share with them. It's the same with God. Our confidence that He hears and sometimes answers our prayers comes not from counting successes and failures, but from a growing relationship with Him grounded in faith and experience. The flawed question of does prayer work? When we ask, does prayer work, we approach it from a misguided perspective. This question assumes that prayer is a mechanism, a cause that produces a specific effect, like a machine or a formula. But prayer, as C.S. Lewis wisely pointed out, is not magic. It's not about manipulating outcomes, but about connection, surrender, and trust in God's infinite wisdom. Imagine walking into a barber's shop and finding that your visit answered a prayer. Was it coincidence, or was it God's hand at work? Those who know God deeply would recognize His gentle orchestration, not because it can be scientifically proven, but because it resonates with their personal relationship with Him. Prayer. Beyond results. True prayer isn't about control or guarantees. It's about aligning our hearts with God's will, trusting in His timing, and learning from His guidance. Much like the requests we make to loved ones, it's not about demanding outcomes but building deeper connections. Prayer teaches us patience, humility, and a reliance on grace. It's a dialogue, not a transaction. A sacred conversation where the act of asking transforms not just circumstances, but the one who prays. So, let us step away from the need to quantify prayer's effectiveness. Instead, let us approach it as a profound act of faith, where we lay our desires before a loving Father and trust that His answers, whatever they may be, are always for our ultimate good. Crafting these videos is a labor of love, filled with time, care, and dedication. If these messages have touched your heart, we warmly invite you to like and subscribe, supporting us and our wonderful team in sharing God's love and inspiration with others, reaching hearts near and far. The essence of prayer is far more than a ritual or an illusion. At its heart, prayer is a sacred conversation, a profound connection between us, incomplete and imperfect as we are, and the perfect, unchanging God. Petitionary prayer, where we ask for things, is only one small facet of this connection. Prayer begins with confession and repentance, an acknowledgement of our need for grace. It moves into adoration, a space where we marvel at God's majesty. Ultimately, prayer culminates in the joyful presence of God, a spiritual feast for the soul. God reveals himself in prayer. When he answers, it is a reflection of who he is, not merely a response to what we want. The answers, while significant, are secondary to the relationship prayer nurtures. It teaches us to lean into his character, trusting not just what he does, but who he is, our loving Creator. The role of petitionary prayer. Even though God does not need our requests to know what is best or to act in goodness, he still invites us to ask. Jesus himself taught us to pray, "Give us our daily bread." This might raise questions. Does God truly alter his plans because of our prayers? After all, his wisdom is infinite, his goodness unmatched. But the beauty of God's design is that he involves us in his work. God could meet all our needs without any human effort. He could heal the sick without doctors, feed the hungry without farmers, or share the gospel without missionaries. Yet, he chooses to allow us to participate, granting us the dignity of being part of his divine plan. Blaise Pascal once said, "God instituted prayer to lend to his creatures the dignity of causality." Our prayers and actions matter. Prayer is not separate from action. It is intertwined with it. When we pray, we step into God's greater plan, not to change his mind, but to align our hearts with his purpose. Our prayers, like our actions, have a place in how God's will unfolds. He could accomplish all things perfectly and instantly, yet he allows us to stumble forward, slowly and imperfectly, in partnership with him. This partnership is an incredible privilege, even if it sometimes feels daunting. Think of it this way. God delegates to us tasks that we could fail, and sometimes do. Yet he does so because he values our involvement. This coexistence of human free will and God's omnipotence is a mystery that stretches our understanding, but it reflects his immense love for us. The mystery of unanswered prayers. It is tempting to think that unanswered prayers mean God has turned away, especially when life becomes difficult. But even Jesus, the perfect example of faith, faced a no in the Garden of Gethsemane when he asked for the cup of suffering to pass from him. This profound moment shows us that unanswered prayers are not a sign of rejection, but a deeper alignment with God's will, often beyond our understanding. Experienced Christians often note that miraculous answers to prayer are more frequent in the early days of faith or conversion. As faith matures, God's answers may seem less obvious, more subtle. Refusals may grow clearer and even more emphatic. Yet this isn't abandonment. It's God drawing us into a deeper trust, refining our reliance on him. God's tender care in trials. Does this mean God forsakes those who serve him most faithfully? Certainly not. Consider Christ's cry on the cross, "Why hast thou forsaken me?" At his greatest moment of need, even Jesus felt the weight of human despair. Yet through this suffering, God worked the greatest victory, the salvation of the world. There is a mystery in how God's presence and his purposes intersect with our pain, one that humbles even the wisest believer. For those of us navigating life's trials, if our prayers are answered against all odds, we should not rush to think we are special. If we were stronger, God might test us more severely. If we were braver, he might send us to face greater challenges with less help. Our journeys are shaped by his perfect wisdom, not our own expectations. Each subscribe is a blessing, and God will multiply your kindness, returning it to you in unexpected ways. Thank you for being a part of this journey with us. The transformative power of prayer. Ultimately, prayer is less about changing God and more about allowing Him to change us. It draws us closer to His heart, aligns us with His purposes, and shapes us into instruments of His will. Through prayer, we are not passive recipients but active participants in the incredible process of creation and redemption. So, the next time you pray, let go of the need for quick answers or guarantees. Instead, embrace prayer as a sacred act of trust, a moment where the finite touches the infinite. In that space, you may not always find the answer you seek, but you will find the peace, strength, and grace of a God who walks with you through every step of life's journey. We invite you to continue watching. In the top left corner, you'll find our most loved video on the channel, a viewer favorite filled with inspiration and encouragement. And on the right, don't miss our playlist of hand-picked, impactful videos, each one crafted to bless and nourish your soul. Thank you for joining us on this journey. May each video be a source of peace and strength in your life.